ladies and gentlemen, we're ready to begin again. In the race for Franklin County Clerk of Courts, Madam Clerk, if you'd introduce yourself briefly. You know, 30-second introduction of yourself, please.
Good evening. I'm Marcia Johnson, and I'm your current elected Clerk of the Court. My entire career has been in the clerk's office right here in Franklin County. I have adapted over the years. When I first started working, we had typewriters. Now we've got the internet. I feel like I have been able to go and be the professional person and adapt to all this new technology. I've met all those challenges with professionalism and transparency. There's no disputing the importance of experience in a clerk's office that has over 1,000 duties. Thank you.
Ms. Sutton?
Can you hear me? Good evening. Thank you for taking the time out. Thank you for taking the time out to find out who the candidates are and why we are running. I have worked 30 years in the financial community in our county, including 7 years in the clerk's office. The job of the clerk requires the skill set I have acquired. It requires transparency, fairness, and honesty in all transactions. This is a commitment that I make to you, the voters. My name is Penny Sutton, and I look forward to speaking with you tonight.
Thank you. Okay, I have a list of 5 questions, and I will start off with Ms. Johnson, and then allow Ms. Sutton to respond, and then start with Ms. Sutton, allow Ms. Johnson to respond, if you will. The clerk's office performs more than 1,000 different constitutional and statutory functions or duties, representing the broadest and most diverse mantle of responsibility of any elected local official. With a budget cut of $2.7 million to the trial court budgets in the state of Florida this year, the legislature has signaled that they expect the clerks to do their job with budgets as lean as possible. Ms. Johnson, how have you dealt with this in the past, and how will you deal with continuing budget cuts in the future?
It has certainly been a challenge with the budget cuts, and my budget has continuously went down. We're trying very hard to work with our legislature to make them understand.
I'm sorry, put a little, I don't know if we can hear you.
We're trying very hard to make the legislature understand that clerks need funding to provide the services our citizens deserve and expect to get in the clerk's office. I have just been appointed first vice president of our state association. I've been in budget workshops this week down in Gainesville. I'm working very hard. I'm lobbying. I know what the clerk needs, and we're getting that message out to our legislators. And I will continue to work for the citizens of this county to get the services they deserve.
And Ms. Sutton, if you would respond, I know that you're familiar with the clerk's budget and the operations of that office. In what areas would you be looking to deal with budget cuts?
Am I on?
I think so.
I'm not familiar, of course, as Marcia, as working with the actual clerk's budget. I do have 30 years in finance. I do know how to write a budget, work with a budget. I do believe in not living above your means, but of course being able to help the public with what they need. I'm sure as time grows, I'll see where things can be cut if needed. Thank you.
And sticking with those among the 1,000 roles that the clerk's office is responsible for, Ms. Sutton, it's been said that all great leaders are not only people with a vision, but those who have the ability to inspire others to contribute and work toward accomplishing a vision. In relation to the responsibilities that the clerk holds, to lead successfully and to successfully perform the duties of the clerk, you must comprehend managerial issues, or specifically prepare reports suggesting improvements to management for all the county offices. You must have a strong comprehension of contracts, more specifically, review proposed contracts before adoption by the county. You must have a strong understanding of finance, more specifically to conduct internal post audits and determine if financial controls in place are sufficient. And finally, I'll reference strong accounting skills, specifically to provide accounting services to all departments under the Board of County Commission. In this being one of the most demanding jobs of all of the constitutional offices, could you please reference what you feel are your strong skills for management, interpretation of contracts, skills with finance, and skills with accounting?
Like I said before, I do have almost 30 years of finance experience. I have been under statutes. I worked 11 years in banking, and of course we know that's nothing but statutes and contracts, and anybody that's been that long in finance has an eye for things that may be wrong or how you can correct them. I have also worked with Anchor Realty, which is, my tenure there was nothing but,
You're good.
sorry, am I on? Nothing but working with contracts, reading, comprehending, and making sure things go smoothly. And I know I sound like a broken record, but when you have 30 years of finance, you automatically have that eye of things that could go wrong and intercept them before they do.
And Ms. Johnson, if you would touch on your managerial, contract, interpretation, finance, and accounting skills.
First off, I'm going to say that first thing you do is you get good staff in place. So, I have people that work in my finance department that have degrees in finance, that know what they're doing. So if you have a good staff in place, that's number one thing. The clerk's duties, very little of my duties revolve around the county commission. Most of my duties revolve around the court system. And we have a county attorney that oversees contracts. So the clerks really aren't involved with contracts. But when we pay bills, I do have staff that monitors things, that catch things. That's their job. But I'm a hands-on clerk. I've been involved with the finances. I actually set up codes for all of our fines and fees we collect. I'm very involved with the budget and with the finance. So I think I got all the experience to carry out those duties. Thank you.
We'll start again with you, Ms. Johnson. And this is going to be very specific. The county audit, and this is for all countywide offices, from the years between 2009 and 2015, which are available online, there's been recognition, again, applying to all county offices, and I think probably directly connected with budget cuts and concerns over funding. But in recognition to the auditors have recommended for all areas of county budget and encouraged constitutional officers to, and I quote, "We recommend that in the absence of the ability to hire additional employees, alternative procedures, including additional oversight with regard to certain functions, be performed regularly to mitigate the risk caused by any deficiency in internal controls, which may be directly related to staffing issues or lack thereof." So given that that's an item that has been referenced verbatim between 2009 and 2015, could you give us an idea of one or two things specifically that you believe are accomplishments in regard to establishing alternative procedures and in regard to establishing additional oversight to certain functions?
That audit statement refers to segregation of duties. Most small counties get that written up every year. I expect we're getting it written up again. It's due to the lack of employees. In a small office, you can't have one person that does bank statements and one person that types the checks and one person that delivers the checks and one person that, we don't have the staff. We don't have the budget to support those staffs in small counties. That is I'm not even worried about that because it's in every budget in every small county. And the only thing you can do is try to get people to, and we do that. We, try to have one person that, reconciles the bank statement, another one that pays the bills, but you can only do so much of that in a small county. So I do the best that any clerk in a small county can do.
Ms. Sutton, in regard to trying to cover the lack of segregation of duties, are there any particular alternative procedures or ideas that you would implement in regard to oversight of certain functions?
I will have to kind of side with Marcia on that. That's the reason in 7 years with my tenure there at the clerk's office, and it doesn't seem a lot compared to her 40. In 7 years, I literally have sat and done the job of just about every desk in that office. And sometimes the job of, in case somebody was out or court, done jobs of 2 or 3 people for that day. It's hard in a small office, but when everybody is working so hard to get the job done, to segregate. I mean, there's just not that much money in the budget for everybody to have a single sit-down job description and not be able to go over and help their fellow employee with what they're doing. I mean, it's just impossible.
It seems that it's a common saying that in a small county, if you don't know what you're doing, all you have to do is ask your neighbor or the person down the road. So in regard to the sense and the notion that the clerk is responsible for maintaining court records with the utmost care and security and for protecting the confidentiality in those records that are not otherwise public records, I would add to that the notion that citizens and individuals need to be very comfortable about interacting with those in the clerk's office. So if you would, who had the last question? Okay, I think this would be Ms. Sutton. With that in mind, in being sensitive to protecting confidentiality to the extent that you can for records that are non-confidential, what would you do to implement some sort of privacy policy with the employees and the staff in the clerk's office?
Most of what goes on in the clerk's office is public record. Now, to have your employees to practice, whether it's public record or not, you just don't talk about it out of the office, even though you handle all that. The confidentiality, that those files are normally kept with one deputy clerk and that deputy clerk only. It's not even shared with other deputy clerks. That whether it's dependency or juvenile or your felony rape cases, that there's one person assigned to those cases. It's not, I mean, and it would not be shared even with the other deputy clerks. It is very confidential. And if you make a practice of just don't talking out of the office, I mean, I've come home before and my husband say, "Do you know so-and-so?" And I said, "I knew that 2 months ago, but I don't talk about it out of the office." You just make it a practice, whether you're in banking, the clerk's office, or wherever you're at.
And Ms. Johnson, if you would tell us about your privacy policy for your employees.
I actually have a public record policy in place. I also chaired a best practice committee statewide, and we did a best practice on public records that I have in place in my office. I have a redaction system on all our court records. That's an automatic redaction. But all my deputy clerks know to look at a case and make sure there's not Social Security numbers, bank accounts, check account numbers, things like that. On cases where we have sensitive information on juvenile victims, they know, to redact information, not allow the public to see that, even reporters, the newspapers. I've never had a problem with any complaint about a public record being made available that should not have been. So I think we have everything in place to cover that.
And just to make that clear to the candidates, that question came up more or less over individuals' concerns that they've expressed about identity theft and so on. So the point was to have you elaborate on what you would do for a privacy policy to protect those items. Thank you. And for the fifth question, we'll start with Ms. Johnson. Simply said, what have you set as your goals if you're reelected for your next term? What would you like to accomplish?
I just want to continue my legacy. I think that I bring a lot of knowledge, reliability, and honesty to the clerk's office. I think people know they come to my office. If I can help somebody, I'm going to help them. I have staff in place that mimic what I want. I mean, like I say, having the right people in the right positions is very important. But I want to continue with the technology, and online records are out there now. I mean, there's a lot going on, and I want to continue that process to get it where the public has better access and more transparency.
And Ms. Sutton, if you were elected for this office, what have you set as your goals to accomplish in the coming term?
I've sit and thought about this for a very long time. The main thing, there's 4 different categories. The enforcement of dual control. Anybody that's got any banking experience, when it comes to handling cash, and I mean in all the county departments, enforcing dual control. Whoever receipts in the money, there should be a report to go with that money, and the supervisor sign off on it. Everything should be dual control. We all 99.9% of the job is money. Everything should be done under dual control. Not everybody handling the money, and when those reports are done, with the signed off by the person who receipts it, I could go on, and by their supervisor, it will be brought to the clerk's office to be reviewed before deposit. Also, more transparency, continued education for the deputy clerk, so senseless mistakes are not making, whether it's in-house or out in other places. Sorry.
And ladies, if you'd like to each give us a summary. And Ms. Sutton, we'll let you go first since.
No one who holds an elected office should ever consider it a lifetime appointment. Earning the people's trust is an everyday job. I'm not asking you to elect me for 30 years. I'm not asking you to elect me for I'm asking you to elect me for 1,460 days. I will have those 1,460 days to earn your trust and confidence. I will have 1,460 days to show you why I stepped out on a limb to face an incumbent. If you find me less than you should expect, if you find that I've done anything to favor a relative or a friend or in any way take advantage of my position, then you can send me home. I appreciate your consideration and your vote on November the 8th. Thank you.
I want to thank the Republican Committee first for allowing us this opportunity. I believe the citizens of Franklin County deserve to have a knowledgeable, reliable, and honest clerk. I realize that as an elected official, I will always be put under questions. And I never mind that. I'm always up for anybody to ask me anything they want to ask me about my job. Florida continues to be in the headlines with national politics. I am familiar with our legislators and the process by which our laws are enacted and carried out with the duties of the clerk. I have the experience needed to carry this office into the future with professionalism. I know the people of Franklin County. I know what we need. I have always been available to help everyone who comes in my office and will continue to do so with employees who know their jobs and continually meet my expectations on providing good customer service. I sincerely ask for your support and vote in November. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.